I never believed in ghosts or the supernatural. That was until I inherited an old, decrepit farmhouse from a distant relative I had never even heard of. The house stood in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by dense, overgrown woods. The moment I stepped inside, an unsettling chill ran down my spine. The air felt heavy, and the creaking floorboards seemed to whisper secrets of the past. Still, I tried to dismiss my unease as mere imagination. Late one stormy night, I awoke to the sound of faint, ghostly laughter echoing through the house. I knew I was alone, but the laughter persisted, growing louder and more sinister with each passing moment. I grabbed a flashlight and ventured down the narrow, dimly lit hallway, my heart pounding in my chest. The laughter led me to a hidden door I had never noticed before. As I opened it, I was greeted by a room filled with antique toys, all covered in a thick layer of dust. The laughter now seemed to emanate from one corner of the room. I approached a dusty porcelain doll that sat on a weathered rocking chair. Its glassy eyes stared directly into mine, and its smile stretched impossibly wide. Suddenly, the doll's laughter turned into an ear-piercing scream, and it lunged at me, its tiny porcelain hands wrapping around my throat. I struggled to break free, but it was as if the doll had the strength of a grown person. I gasped for air, my vision fading, and as I lost consciousness, I knew that I had unwittingly awakened something malevolent within that farmhouse. Now, I'm trapped in a nightmare, tormented by the vengeful spirit that resides there, forever haunted by my skepticism turned to terror. The doll's laughter still echoes in my mind, haunting me every waking moment. I can't shake off the feeling that it's watching me, waiting for the right moment to strike again. The once peaceful farmhouse has now become a place of terror, and I'm its prisoner. The walls seem to close in on me, and the air is thick with the stench of decay. I can hear whispers in the dark, and the sound of footsteps that aren't mine. I'm not alone in this house, and I fear that I'll never be able to leave. When I was around 8 or 9 years old, I lived in a small village in Europe. It was a classic village with farms and surrounded by small forests and open fields. The closest village was about an hour away, and we had to cross small forests and open fields to get there. My brother and I were very close to each other, and we had some close friends who were siblings. There was a girl my age and a boy who was 1 year older than my brother. We used to go on adventures and hiking trips together. One day, we decided to go on a picnic in the open field. I took my toy compass and some snacks, while my brother took a flashlight because we planned to stay out late. We met up and started walking towards the middle of the Basenjak, the open field. However, I started feeling unwell, and I told my brother. He was annoyed that I ruined the trip, but he was carrying me, so we told the two siblings that we were going home. As we were walking back, it started to get foggy, and it became even more foggy. We were lost in the fog when I saw a deer in the distance. I told my brother, and when I looked back, the deer was contorting into a human-like creature. I almost threw up because of the scene. It looked like a butterfly coming out of a cocoon, but it was foggy, so I only saw the gray figure. It looked at our direction left and right, but because of the fog, it didn't see us. I looked at my brother horrified, as he had seen a gruesome sight. We slowly walked the other way while looking back at the creature. We found our way back unharmed, thankfully. Also, the toy compass didn't work for some reason after that. We didn't tell our mother, and we slept together in one bed. The sight was horrifying. It was as if the creature was following us, and we were lucky to have escaped. The incident still haunts me to this day. I inherited an old farmhouse from my grandfather, who had passed away a few years ago. The farmhouse was located in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by dense woods and vast fields. It was a beautiful place, but it had a dark history. My grandfather had always been a recluse, and he rarely talked about his past. But I had heard rumors that he had been involved in some kind of cult that practiced dark magic. I didn't believe in such things, but the story still gave me chills. One day I decided to visit the farmhouse and see it for myself. As I drove down the long, winding road that led to the farmhouse, I felt a sense of unease. The woods seemed to be closing in on me, and the air was thick with an eerie silence. When I finally reached the farmhouse, I was surprised to find that it was in good condition. The windows were boarded up, and the doors were locked, but I managed to find a way inside. The interior of the farmhouse was dark and musty, and the air was thick with the smell of decay. As I walked through the rooms, I felt as if I was being watched. The walls seemed to be closing in on me, and the shadows seemed to be moving. Suddenly, I heard a faint whispering sound coming from one of the rooms. I followed the sound and found myself in a small, cramped room. The walls were covered in strange symbols, and the air was thick with the smell of incense. As I looked around the room, I felt a sudden chill run down my spine. I realized that I was not alone in the room. There was a presence there, something dark and malevolent. I tried to leave the room, but the door wouldn't budge. I was trapped, alone with the dark presence. The whispering grew louder, and I felt as if I was being suffocated. Suddenly, the walls began to shake, and the symbols on the walls started to glow. The room was filled with a blinding light, and I felt as if I was being pulled into another dimension. When I opened my eyes, I found myself in a vast, dark void. The only thing I could see was a small, flickering light in the distance. I knew that I had to reach the light if I wanted to escape. As I walked towards the light, I felt as if I was being followed. I turned around, but there was nothing there. The whispering grew louder, and I felt as if I was losing my mind. Finally, I reached the light, and I found myself back in the farmhouse. The symbols on the walls had disappeared, and the air was clear.